Welcome to The Cross in the Classroom, Educating with Eternal Values, the podcast where faith and education come together. Join us every 2 weeks as we connect with the inspiring voices of Valor Christian High School, teachers, students, and leaders, sharing stories of growth, purpose, and the eternal values that guide our community. We're glad you're here.
On this episode, we are excited to have our alumni coordinator, Bailey Williams, as a host. Bailey sits down with Micah Priest. Micah shares honestly about his journey from student athlete at Valor to student pastor in his hometown church in Castle Rock, Colorado. He talks about the life-altering injury that changed his path, how he found new purpose in coaching and ministry, and the mentors at Valor who guided him through tough seasons. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and visit valorchristian.com for more information. Let's get started today with Bailey Williams and Micah Priest.
Well, thanks for being here, Micah. I always say that my favorite part of my job is getting to just sit down and talk to alumni. So it's good to do it officially.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to first just kind of get an idea of like what you're up to now. What do you do for work? Tell me about your family. Would love to just get an update of where you're at.
Yeah, I've been married to my wife, Brittany, for the past 4.5 years, and we have 2 daughters, a almost 4-year-old named Collins, and just now 1-year-old named Blair. So full girl dad right now, and currently working at Journey Church, the church that I grew up in, which is super cool, full circle moment for us, and to be the student pastor serving our 6th through 12th graders and leaders. And so that's a ton of fun and takes up a lot of our time. But yeah that's
I
really.
love it. And do you live nearby?
Yeah, we live in Castle Rock, Colorado, just outside of where I grew up. So it's a great place. I loved growing up there as a kid. And so there's not a better place, I think, to be able to raise a family.
I love it. It's cool to come home. Where did you go for school, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, after Valor, I went to Kennesaw State University, and just outside of Atlanta, I had a cousin who was playing softball there, and so that's where I heard about it. I knew I wanted to go far, but also wanted to know some people and have some connections, and so through my cousin and then also through a family friend who's a pastor down there, I got to get involved with their church and their college ministry there, as well as get plugged in with that high school football program and be able to coach. Cool. And so that's kind of what I was looking for as I was graduating high school, is a school that could kind of check those boxes where I could find a church to plug into and a school to coach high school football at. So that's where I ended up going.
Which actually that brings me to what I was going to ask you anyway, which is what were you involved in at Valor? Like, is that what sparked some of that? I mean, it sounds like you had an idea for what life would be next when you were in high school, and I wondered if that was maybe fueled by what you did.
Yeah, so I played football here at Valor, and that was a big reason why I came to Valor, was wanting to be a part of the football program that had a ton of success leading up to me entering in as a freshman at 2014. And so I was really excited for that opportunity and loved being able to play on the freshman and JV team and then eventually on varsity. And then my junior year, I started having some really severe back issues and didn't really know what it was and kept having to try to play through it and hurting myself and taking some time off and then coming back on just to hurt it again. And then eventually got an MRI and realized that I have degenerative discs all throughout my spine. And so I kind of had that heartbreaking doctor's office moment that every athlete fears and hopes never happens to them, where I kind of heard the news of you cannot play football anymore. And that really was what my identity was in. That was what my world revolved around, was this dream of playing varsity football, winning a state championship, getting a scholarship, playing in college. And so that was all stripped away from me in a moment, right after the junior season. And I didn't really know what that was going to look like. I was pretty torn apart about it.
Yeah.
And even just that junior year, having to sit out with the unknown, like that was dreadful. Just watching all of my buddies live out the dream that I had. And so going into my senior year, I was like, I don't think I can do that again. Like I can't just sit on the sidelines and watch all of my buddies pursue the dreams that I had and have the goals and accomplish them like I wanted to. And so I ended up talking to our head football coach at the time and had this idea that actually came from my dad of coaching and of coaching on the freshman team. So I could kind of be on the other field and give myself some distance from what was so hard to be so close to, and give myself some purpose around the game that I still loved. And thankfully he was all for the idea. He absolutely loved it. And I think that's what's so great about Valor is that the coaches want what's best for us and they want to come alongside us and help us however we can. They're not looking to get something out of us. They want something for us. And so that's what got me into coaching was that senior year where I was able to pour into the freshman boys every single day at practice but also have relationships with them during the school day, take them out to dinners, go watch movies with them. And I just like fell in love with that where I was able to coach them, but also pastor them in some ways and mentor them. And so that was kind of my involvement with Valor, where I kind of got to experience a lot of different perspectives from a player to also a coach. And that's kind of what led me to making that decision my senior year of going to school. It kind of opened up my horizons where I wasn't like limited to, okay, where am I going to get a scholarship? Right. Well, now that's out the window and that was heartbreaking, but it also opened up a door to be able, okay, well now I can go wherever I want. Yeah. And I have this new dream and purpose on my heart that I didn't have before. And so that led to being able to do something at Kennesaw State.
That's awesome. I mean, would you say, I think you covered it well, but if you could give advice to a current student whose dream for the next season of life, right, of anything, is not turning out like they thought it would be, I'd love to hear what your advice was, because there's clearly a time period in between finding that out.
Yes.
And that really life-giving senior year where you're in the dark forest.
Yes.
So what's kind of your advice for finding some purpose if it's not, I know you have a very specific example of how you did, but just generally, what would you tell them?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think, there was the dark shadow of the soul in that moment where it was really, really hard. And it's easy now to look back on and see how God was moving and how he was faithful and how he had a plan all along, but it did not feel like that whatsoever in that doctor's office or just standing on the sidelines and then number one, being in pain. The pain never went away. And so that was also another wrinkle. And so I think, for someone who's going through it, it's really hard to believe it in the moment that there is, hope on the other side and that there is going to be another opportunity down the road and God's going to open up another door. But I think for me, it obviously sharpened me and it helped me go through adversity and to go through something really difficult and hard and come out better. And so knowing like, hey, this is going to help make you stronger. This is going to help you depend on God more than you ever have before. And so my relationship with God was a lot of wrestling, but I think that was necessary and needed for me to be able to go through really hard things and question God and doubt him and wrestle with him. And why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? But because of that, I chose to lean into my faith and not run away from my faith. And so I think that'd be my first part of advice would be to don't run away from it. Don't try to numb out on something else to pursue ungodly things and pleasure in other different areas, but to really lean in and surround yourself with people, whether they're your friends or the teachers and coaches here at Valor, or they're your parents, and really lean into that and commit to going to church and reading your Bible and being a part of a youth ministry where you can grow in your faith and and he can help you walk through that where you can know I'm not alone in this. So I think that would be my first advice, would be really to not run away from God, but actually to lean in and be fully dependent on him, and know that he's going to meet you there in that really hard spot. And he's gotten you to this point, he got you to high school. He's going to get you through high school. And I think that's what I've learned, like through high school and college, like going through all the ups and downs, like I always have to look back. And I think that's why God is always asking and calling us to remember. We see it all throughout the Old Testament, where there's stones of remembrance, there's celebrations and festivals and parties, because they want to remember what God did. And so they're constantly reflecting. And I think in our world, it's so forward focused that we never look back and celebrate. Outside of like birthdays, there's not a lot of time where we're celebrating what has been done in the past.
Yeah.
And so I've learned a lot to just continue to reflect and be like, man, God was faithful then. And so why would I doubt that he's going to be faithful now in this hardship?
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, and actually with that in mind, looking back at Valor, who would you say there's anyone that, a teacher, a coach, or a mentor that stood out to you as being pivotal? Is there someone, when you look back and you're here on campus and you remember this place, that you're like, that's someone who was influential? And if so, how?
Yeah, several come to mind.
Yeah.
Obviously, Coach Sherman, who was the varsity head coach, who gave me that opportunity. He really took time to spend time with me and give me opportunities, and will forever be thankful for him and still keep in touch with him, which is really great. And then on that freshman football team, Mr. Hamilton helped coach that year because his son was a freshman, and I also had him in class. And so I got to spend a ton of time with him my senior year, whether it was on the field or in the classroom. And he's one of the most like funny people I've ever met, and has a great sense of humor, has great faith, is just a great father and husband and example. So I loved being able to spend time with him. And then Hutch, who's obviously a favorite for everyone, but she really knew. I had her that junior year that I was going through the worst year of my life at the time, and she really understood like kind of what I was walking through and would check up on me, and was a light kind of in that dark period. So I'm super grateful for her too.
That. I got the advice when I was in college of be who you needed when you were younger. And I feel like that, I don't mean to speak for you, but it sounds to me like a lot of those people are, it echoes into what you do now for work. I mean, you are who people need in their young years. And so I think it's kind of cool to hear you call back to some of those people.
Yes.
And have this, that I'm like, that's what you're doing now. So, and actually I should ask that. I would love to know, just sort of in your work, you work in ministry. I always love to hear about alumni who are working in ministry. And I guess my question is sort of vague there, but how would you say that Valor kind of prepared you from a leadership standpoint and kind of that ministry example for what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in a lot of different areas, the word that just came to mind first was excellence. I think that's a big value of Valor, and they do everything with excellence, or at least strive to.
Yeah.
Of course, no one's perfect, but I think I saw that through academics and through athletics and through chapel and just everything. And I think that has instilled something into me where was a part of our family values for sure. But it was just, I got to see that up front and personal, and get to see things led really well and run really well, which is something that we try to implement at Journey. And that's one of our core values as a church, is to chase excellence and to do everything to the best of our ability. And so that's something that we instill a lot, where we have a high standard and we have a high bar, and we work really hard to try to achieve that. And so that's something that I've definitely taken away.
I love it. Cool. And actually kind of going back then a little bit, I actually ask this to most alumni that I meet, because I always like the answer. Would you say that, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about kind of seasons of life and transitions. So, we talked a little bit about college. Would you say that you were prepared for college academically, spiritually, all those things by what you experienced at Valor?
Yeah, academically for sure. College was easier
I
than
hear
it
that a
was
lot.
in high school. And so I barely scathed out of Valor. Like, was a pretty average student. Academics are not my thing. I know you guys had another alumni who's the valedictorian here. And so you're getting both sides of the spectrum.
Tough act to follow, yeah.
I was like, okay, here we go. Where I loved and worked really hard, but when it came to academics, testing and just performing in that way did not come naturally to me. I had to work very hard for everything I had to get. But in college, it was much easier. So it definitely prepared me well academically. And and for life, like just, the work ethic and, like I said, the standard of excellence and the amount of people that we come in contact with at Valor that are just sharp people and the amount of people that came to speak at chapel or just the teachers that we had, like we were trained to really be equipped for everyday life.
Yeah. And actually, I would ask kind of on the same note of advice to students, but can you tell me a little bit more about your experience when you were in high school of having to work extra hard to earn what you're getting? Did you feel like you had the support here to do that? How did you kind of motivate to get across that stage? We're saying pretty darn close to commencement time. So.
Yeah, right. Yes.
It's on the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 1000%. Like I always felt like the teachers, like they want you to succeed. And so it wasn't like, hey, you got to figure it out kind of deal. It was like always open for office hours. They sacrifice their lunch. They eat their lunch while, helping tutor you and go over curriculum. And that was so helpful. And so I took full advantage of that. And unashamedly, where I met with probably all of my teachers, like during lunch or during their office hours, during an off period. And they were so glad to do that, which I was so grateful for. And so, I took full advantage and they saw me a lot.
That is, I mean, if that's not advice right there, that if like, I could tell my own self that in high school as well. But, well, that's great to hear. And then, so going back to kind of those seasons in your life, how do you feel like, kind of your experience and the examples here at Valor have, informed the way you're raising a family. And I actually have always said that that's one of my favorite accomplishments to see from our alumni is just that they are, raising families to, walk in the way of the Lord and that kind of thing. And I get the feeling that you are doing that. So I would just love to hear a little bit about, and it doesn't all have to be about Valor, but I do assume that that's some of your foundation. So I'd love to just hear how that has kind of infused into parenting and husbanding and things like that. Yeah,
all the things. I think for me, just kind of how I was raised with a very close-knit family, and family is really important to me. And I've always wanted to be a husband and to be a dad. When people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? Throughout college, like that answer, instead of change from being, a football player or a football coach, is like, I want to be a dad when I grow up. Cool. That's one of my, things that I'm so looking forward to. And I think I got to see that through my own dad, through the coaches here at Valor who brought their kids along and they brought them onto the field, and you got to see them in that environment. Seeing the pastors that were at our church and see how they were dads and how they were husbands. Yeah. I was just surrounded by that a lot. So it was something that I was so excited for, strived for, cool. And went pretty quickly for. Yeah, too.
That's all I was going to say. Yeah. How long have you been married?
So we've been married for 4.5 years.
All right.
5 years in September. So I met my wife, Brittany, when I was 18, first semester of college. Okay. We met like just a couple weeks in and started dating pretty quickly. And then we dated for 2.5 years. All and right. Then got engaged and married at 21. And then we got pregnant right after. So we had honeymoon baby. And so a lot happened in the year or the age of 21, where I became a husband and a father and a pastor all at 21.
You really did become an adult all at once.
Yep. I wasn't wasting any time.
Well, it sounds like a very full life. That's exciting. I love to hear that. Mm-hmm. Well, and I guess I sometimes ask this too, especially for alumni with kids. Do you think that that Valor is somewhere that you would want to send your kids someday? I don't know if that's crazy to say so early in their lives, but would you want something like that for your kids?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's super far out. I'm not even thinking about it.
Fair.
But
you're welcome. I'm the first person to ask you where your kids are going to high school.
Right. You're like, oh my goodness. Like, I don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. But yes, in the grand scheme of things, I had a great experience at Valor. I always look back when people ask me and they say, how did you like it?
Yeah.
I always say I had an incredible experience, no regrets, would do it again over and over. And so I absolutely would love my kids to be able to have a similar experience.
Yeah. I just like to ask because it's fun to think about, that someday they'll be in your shoes, and you probably see that more as a youth pastor.
Right.
You graduated in 2018. Mm-hmm. What would you say, 8 or 10 years later, kind of in that zone, removed enough, would you say is different for teenagers today that you're seeing different from when you were in high school?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a difference for sure to see what our students are going through, especially like even recently with what they had to go through the pandemic, where like I'm starting to see like the difference in social skills. Like we're seeing, sophomores in high school did not go to middle school. Like for those like 3 years, it was on and off and all over the place. And so they spent a full year at home not developing how to talk to people, look people in the eye, talk to a new person. And so we're kind of walking through that with some of our student leaders, and we're seeing that of like, oh, they need help in this area and assistance. And so there's areas with just socializing and getting involved, just because it's so easy to just stay home and to play video games or to be on your phone and just to look at what everybody else is doing and just scroll. And then obviously there is a huge like social media epidemic where people like identify their whole self based on their profile and based on other people's, and the whole comparison game, where I think two people who go to Valor, but also who go to any public school in this area, there is a striving mindset, and it creates a lot of pressure. And I don't know if it was as much like that 8 to 10 years ago. I think there was some of that, but I think when you can see what every other high school kid is doing, and you can see the top 1%, and now everyone's comparing themselves to the top 1% and they feel like they're falling behind, it can be really depressing, and it can be really discouraging to walk through that. So I think through social media, through the pandemic, through isolation, and through pressure and comparison, like that, I think those are all at an all-time high. And we see that with statistics, with anxiety, with depression, with certain mental disorders that have come from it. It's really hard to see, and our students are going through a lot right now. I think it's probably the hardest time to go through high school because of all those reasons. And
what would you say is the antidote to that? I know that's not it's like the hardest question that we're all trying to answer, right? But you're with them and seeing them outside of the classroom. What do you think is kind of biblical encouragement for, parents and teachers, as someone who sees students in another environment? Like, what would you say, or what do you tell the students to kind of help them get through that challenge?
Yeah, I think it's a couple different things. I think number one, setting boundaries. So whether it's with your phone or whether it's managing your schedule, I think it's crazy, but the kids have to do that now. They have so much going on with sports and academics and extracurriculars. They get so busy. There are some things that they need to manage. There's some things that they need to say no to, and just be a kid and not be striving to go and do so many different things. That's a thing that I love about Valor, and I want our students to do, but there's a certain extent where there needs to be a boundary where you need to be able to say no to certain things, and so you're not so overwhelmed. And then obviously I'm biased, but I think it's being a part of a community in the church. I think being a part of a youth ministry at a local church where you are regularly meeting in person with your peers who are all walking through the same things as you with small group leaders who are older than you, wiser than you, and who want to walk through life with you and alongside you. I think it's great to have a great relationship with your parents, but I think it's so good to have somebody else that's not your parent that you can open up to, be vulnerable with, that cares about you and wants to meet with you on a regular basis. And so I think that's huge. And I think just being forward focused, but and paying attention to the decisions that you're making. I say a lot that the decisions that we make today will determine the impact we make tomorrow. And so I think some people put on one side of the spectrum, put a ton of pressure on their decisions and put so much weight into it to the nth degree where it's too much, but then some are very flippant with their decisions. And so I'm always constantly calling our students to make wise choices and to think about the decisions that they're making, because they all have consequences, whether positive or negative. And so that's a lot of kind of my language that I share with students, is to make wise decisions each and every day and to think about who is the person I want to become. And then, all right, what are the things I need to do to become that person?
Right. Yeah. Use discernment and seeking the Lord first and all those things. Yes. I do love that. Well, I think I have time for like one more question. And I guess I would say, we just talked about, oh, you're this far out, but bringing you back in the Valor mindset, I would just ask, what do you talked about, oh, I'd go back and do it again. What would you encourage students and families to cherish about this place while they're here?
That's a great question. I think, to soak it in, to not rush through it, because once you become an adult, you can't go back. And so just high school in general, like, soak up and enjoy every moment with your friends, with your teachers. Yeah. Cherish the conversations and the mentorships that you get to have with the teachers and the coaches, and cherish the education that you get to get, the people that you get to hear from, the experiences that you get to have. I think those are all, every aspect, I think there's something to take and hold on to moving forward.
I love that. Well, thanks, Micah. I think that your story is going to be very encouraging to folks. And I really appreciated you just sitting down and kind of rehashing and going down memory lane. And that's like the best part of alumni stuff. And I love to kind of see how our alumni, what they were like in high school and what their lives have come to fruition as. And so we just wish you the best of luck in everything. And thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Thank you for joining us on The Cross in the Classroom, Educating with Eternal Values. We hope today's conversation inspired and encouraged you. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and stay connected with the Valor Christian High School community. Keep living out faith, learning with purpose, and growing in grace. Until next time.